All right, everyone. Welcome this afternoon on this lovely New Year's Eve as we hopefully embark on a 2021 that is not as exciting as 2020. And if it is exciting, hopefully in a positive manner. So welcome to our South Windsor Chamber webinar today on Connecticut paid leave as we sort of talk through some of the logistics. This webinar is sponsored by the South Windsor Chamber of Commerce, hosted by Dave McMahon, myself, Vasant Kankuriam, along with Amy Pinard from the Chamber as well. Before I turn it over to Dave, who will introduce our speaker, just wanted to go through a quick few reminders. The presentation will last about 25 minutes, followed by a question and answer session. During that question and answer session, I will allow participants to unmute themselves, and you can raise your hand and ask the question, or you can type it in to the chat box and we'll kind of go through them systematically. The recording is also going to be shared by the South Windsor Chamber as well. And Amy can give us some details on that toward the end. So in case for some reason you're not able to attend today, you can definitely go ahead and see that at that time. When you are asking questions, once you're done, we do ask that you mute yourself and panelists as well. We ask that each of us mute ourselves so that any background noise or anything is not captured in the recording. So without any further delay, I'm going to turn it over to Dave McMahon, and we'll go ahead and get started. Dave, on to you.
Thanks, Vasant, and thank you everyone for being here. Thank you to our wonderful guests, Aaron Chuckett and Amber Forrest from CT Paid Leave. They are going to be helping all of us get a better understanding of what's going on with COVID and all the changes that are happening with paid leave as business owners and people who are involved in the running of businesses here in South Windsor. This is obviously a top of mind topic for all of us, whether we're working in HR or just running our own businesses here. So I'm going to get out of your way and let Aaron take it away from here.
Thank you very much, Dave, and thank you everyone from the Chamber for inviting us today. I'm going to share my screen and bring up, you've disabled participant share screening, so someone needs to let me share my screen. But while we're making sure that happens, I will let you know that here we go. So I am Aaron Choquette. I am the General Counsel for the Connecticut Paid Leave Authority, and we are thrilled to participate in this New Year's Eve event. Let me just get to slideshow, and then we'll go from there. And Amber is our extraordinary assistant. She can respond to questions as I go, and then, as I said, we can do more questions and answers during the second half of the hour. But I think it's helpful to just do a quick overview of the program before we get into the questions, because hopefully we'll answer a lot of them through the slideshow, which we can share with the Chamber and make that available to you as well. I am an attorney. I've been working for over 20 years as an attorney. I recently joined the authority. Prior to that, I worked for the Connecticut Department of Administrative Services, which is the agency in the state of Connecticut that handles all the back office functions for other agencies, including HR. So I've been dealing with FMLA, both at DIS and in my prior career in private practice for 20 years now. I went to College of the Holy Cross, so I'm a proud Crusader, and I went to Columbia Law School before coming back to Connecticut. So enough about me. Let's talk about the authority. The Connecticut Paid Leave Authority was created by Public Act 1925 in recognition of the fact that employees who are sick and can't come to work, or who have a responsibility for caring for a loved one and can't come to work, may have access to job protection, but can't use that job protected leave because they can't live without an income. And so the goal behind the Connecticut Paid Leave Authority is to provide some financial relief to those individuals. So our mission is to provide Connecticut workers with accessible paid family medical leave benefits, and as importantly, to help employers third-party administrators, and healthcare providers understand the law and their roles in the program, and to make sure that they're supported so that the program works best for everybody. This slide sort of shows kind of the last couple of months of work. The board of directors for the Paid Leave Authority met for the first time in October of 2019. We hired our CEO. She came on board in March, and we've been working nonstop to try and get this program up and running. The ctpaidleave.org is our website. It was launched in early September, and it is chock full of information about the program. I'll show you some information about it later on, but it's kind of where you go. It's where you go to get information. It's got videos, it's got FAQs, it's got handouts. It's also where you go to register and, sort of the portal to remit the contributions later on. If you haven't registered already, we have set the December 31st deadline. It is not a hard and fast deadline, right? We know that people respond better if they know when things are due. And so people have been registering. But if you haven't registered yet, you still have time. The idea behind registering before today was to make sure that you kind of were familiar with the program, familiar with the website, and had your account set up before you had the obligation to start taking the deductions, which starts tomorrow. But go ahead and register through ctpaidleave.org. If you don't get it complete, that's fine. We'll help you through it. You have time, but do it quickly. And the reason we want you to get it done is because you need to set up your account so that you can start understanding what your responsibilities are for deducting the contributions, which is 1/2 of 1%. And if you are a sole proprietor or self-employed individual, you can also register. The deductions have to be taken from the first paycheck after tomorrow. If you're still working with your payroll provider or your bookkeeper to configure it to make sure that the contributions are calculated properly, let us know. We can assist you with that. If you can't find the answers you need on the website, we're not coming out to get you. We're giving you time to get everything up and running, but it does start tomorrow. And starting a year from now, on January 1st of 2022, employees and those self-employed individuals or sole proprietors who have registered can start making their applications for income replacement. So the Connecticut Paid Leave Authority is responsible for outreach and engagement, working with the communities to understand the program, to help them convey the information. So that's why we love doing these webinars and why we've done a number of them on our own. If you are looking for more information, you can go to our website, and we've got videos of our past webinars available. We also are responsible for developing the policies and procedures that are needed to run the authority. We have to establish the trust fund contribution rate and receive those contributions. The rate is 1/2 of 1%. That's the statutorily set rate. If the fund demonstrates its solvency and we can provide benefits for a lower contribution, we have the authority to reduce the contribution. We do not have the authority to raise it. We also have the authority to approve and audit private plans, which I'll talk about more in a few minutes. And then again, starting in 2022, we'll be administering claims for paid leave benefits. So contributions, that's what everyone's thinking about right now. The employees are going to have to contribute 0.5% of their wages. The contributions are post-tax, and basically you calculate the wages the way you calculate it right now for FICA purposes, and you take that number, and then you take the 0.5% from that number. The statute does not allow us to use the contributions to lower your taxable rate. It's also important to note that the contributions are capped at the Social Security contribution rate, which starting tomorrow is going to be about $142,400, I believe. So once you hit that magic number, you won't be contributing anymore for the year. So the employee contributes the money. This is entirely employee funded, but the employer is responsible for remitting the contributions, as well as some basic wage information to the Connecticut Paid Leave Authority. We receive the contributions and validate that wage information to make sure we're getting the right amount. And then we deposit that into the Connecticut Paid Leave Trust. This is a separate trust. It is administered by the Office of State Treasurer, but it is not a state account. It cannot be used for any purposes other than administering the program and paying the benefits. So let's talk about who's covered by the Connecticut Paid Leave Program. This is, I think, our number one question. It's like, am I part of this program or not? And the answer is most likely yes. The statute says that all employers of one or more people are considered to be employers, and therefore their employees have to participate. This includes not-for-profits. This includes private sector employers with unionized workforces. This includes small shops, big shops, whatever. It includes companies that are based out of Connecticut but have employees working in Connecticut. It also includes sole proprietors or self-employed individuals who choose to opt in. There are a few entities who are not covered, and this really follows the existing law about Connecticut FMLA, which is the Connecticut version of the Family and Medical Leave, which provides job-protected leave. And so the entities that are not covered by the job-protected statute are also not part of the paid leave program. So the federal government, some employees of the state, except for covered public employees, municipalities and local and regional boards of education are not covered unless they have covered public employees, and non-public elementary or secondary schools are also not covered. So covered public employee, what is that? That's a term that is defined by the statute. So as I said, if you're a covered public employee, you participate in the program. So all non-unionized employees of the state participate. So we'll all be contributing starting tomorrow too. Unionized employees of the state who collectively bargain to be included can also opt to participate, but right now they're out. Right now, employees of municipalities and employees of local and regional boards of education are excluded. But if the unionized employee of the municipality or the board opt to join in through collective bargaining, then everybody comes in, union and non-union. I threw in the definition of the statute in case people on the call are, or definition of municipality in case people on the call work for a municipal entity. But basically we're following the definition of municipality that you find in the collective bargaining for municipalities statutes. So let's talk a little bit about sole proprietors and self-employed individuals. If you are an individual who is receiving a W-2 from your employer, we consider you to be an employee because you are receiving a W-2, you're getting wages, you're paying your employee taxes. On the other hand, if you pay self-employment taxes, we're going to consider you to be self-employed, including sole proprietors. So if you are a sole proprietor or a self-employed individual who resides in Connecticut, you can choose to opt in. If you're a sole proprietor who also has employees, you have to register to get your employees in, and then you yourself can choose whether or not you want to participate. It's voluntary, so if you don't want to participate, don't register. You can always change your mind later. If you do decide to enroll, you have to stay in the plan for a minimum of 3 years. And your contribution rate is going to be the same. It's going to be 0.5 of 1%, but it's based on your self-employment taxes, not on your W-2 taxes. All right. So the Connecticut Paid Leave Program, as I've mentioned, is really the income replacement. So it pairs with Connecticut FMLA, which provides job protection. They're not entirely synchronous, but the reasons for leave and the reasons for income replacement are the same. And that is to create or expand your family. So either the birth of a child or the placement of a child through adoption or foster care. This is called bonding leave, if you're used to that term under regular federal FMLA. You can also care for a family member with a serious health condition. You can, of course, take time to care for yourself for your own serious health condition. And I want to point out that serious health condition includes pregnancy as well as serving as an organ or bone marrow donor. So if you are in that situation or a family member is in either of those two situations, that's a serious health condition. There's also something called military caregiver leave, which allows an individual to take time off to care for a family member who's injured while on active duty in the military. And there's something called qualifying exigency leave, which is time off to deal with specific reasons associated with when your family member is called to overseas active duty. Could be things like going to the sending off ceremony or making taking time away from work because you have to go to a law firm or to a bank to set up a new financial arrangement. Connecticut law also provides family violence leave. That's a separate statute under Connecticut law, which is up to 12 days to deal with certain situations associated with experiencing family violence. And you can get income replacement under Connecticut Paid Leave Act for that leave. So just want to set this program in the context of the larger kind of leave world. There are other statutes that exist to provide job protection. So there's the federal FMLA, the Connecticut FMLA, which I've alluded to, and an individual could be eligible for just federal. They could be eligible for Connecticut FMLA only. They might be eligible for both federal and state FMLA, and those, if so, the leaves would run concurrently. You may have employees who are not eligible for either federal or state FMLA, but they might be entitled to job protected leave as a reasonable accommodation under the Americans with Disabilities Act, the Connecticut Fair Employment Practices Act, or the Pregnancy Disability Act. So you have to consider those laws. And some employees won't be eligible for job protection if they take leave. So let's sort of dig into that a little bit more. Many of you may be aware of the current federal FMLA because that law has been on the books since the 90s. But as it stands right now, and the way it will look in 2022 are very different. So that's the purpose of this slide, is to really highlight those differences. Right now, Connecticut FMLA only applies to employers with 75 or more employees in Connecticut. As of January 1st, 2022, it's going to apply to employers with 1 or more employees. Right now, if you are a covered employer, your employees have to work 12 months and at least 1,000 hours in the 12 months immediately preceding leave to be able to take job protected leave. But in 2022, an employee will receive job protection if they take leave once they've worked for you for 3 months. The amount of leave is going to change too. Right now, it's 16 weeks in a 24-month period, except that that military caregiver leave is actually 26 weeks. But in 2022, it's going to look more like federal FMLA, which is 12 weeks in a 12-month period. You still have that 26 weeks for military caregiver leave, but the statute also adds an additional 2 weeks of leave for incapacitation during pregnancy. Under Connecticut FMLA right now, an employer has the option of requiring the employee to use any and all accrued time so that they can receive income replacement during their leave. The law was tweaked so that in 2022, the employer has to let an employee keep at least 2 weeks of accruals. You can't say you have to use all of your time. You have to let them hold on to at least 2 weeks of their time. All right, let's just talk about eligibility. So in order to say, I want job protection when I take leave, or I want income replacement, you have to show that you're eligible. And this is one of those areas where, even though the laws are intended to be read together, they're not entirely synchronous. So for federal FMLA, you have to show that you were employed for at least 12 months, non-consecutive or consecutive, and you had to work for at least 1,250 hours in the 12 months immediately preceding leave. The federal FMLA is not expected to change. As I pointed out in the last slide, the Connecticut FMLA will change. And in 2022, you just have to work for the employer for 3 months, and there is no longer an hours worked requirement to be eligible for job protection. The Connecticut Paid Leave Act, so under the Connecticut Paid Leave Program, provides income replacement. So we really look at how much money you've earned. We're not looking at how long you've worked for any particular employer. So if an employee wants to receive income replacement benefits from the authority, they have to show us that they earned at least $2,325 in their highest earning quarter when you look at their first 4 of the most recent 5 quarters. So we are working with Department of Labor and Department of Revenue Services, so we can validate that information when the applications come in, rather than having to get that information from the employers, in part because we will be looking at all of the employees' jobs, not just their primary employer. If they have multiple jobs, we're going to look at their income from all of their jobs. In addition to earning the $23.25, you have to show that you are currently employed in Connecticut, or that you had been employed in Connecticut sometime during the 12 weeks immediately preceding when you asked for leave for the income replacement. So an individual who is not eligible for job protection and loses their job could come to us for income replacement. A sole proprietor or self-employed individual who has opted to participate in the program and has earned the $23.25 can also receive income replacement benefits. Okay, so what does the employer do in all of this? Employee comes and says, I'm pregnant, or my dad broke his hip, or I need time off. The employer has to notify the employee as to whether or not they qualify for job protection. That's the existing rule for the employer, and that will continue in 2022. The employer also tells the employee if they have any accrued time and whether they can use that accrued time during their leave. It's going to be up to the employer to decide if they are going to offer the employee the option of using their job or their employer provided accruals, or if they're going to be required to use those accruals. And then the employer should say to the employee, but hey, you should contact Paid Leave Authority for income replacement benefits. The Paid Leave Authority will make the decision about eligibility for income replacement benefits, not the employer, with one exception. If the employer has an approved private plan, part of the approval for the private plan means that we're putting the employer in the place of making the decision about income replacement. They have to do it in accordance with the statute, but if you have an approved private plan, you will be making those decisions, not the authority. As I mentioned, an employee might be eligible to receive benefits from the Paid Leave Authority, even if they're not eligible for job protection. So we get a lot of questions about the income replacement and what this means, because a lot of employers already provide paid leave to their employees, either through earned accruals or through short or long-term disability policies. The statute says that an employee can receive paid leave benefits from the Paid Leave Authority concurrently with employer-provided benefits, as long as the combination of benefits do not exceed 100% of the employee's regular wages. So they shouldn't be giving more money by staying home. As I had mentioned, the employer can require the employee to use employer-provided time off, but they have to let the employee hold on to at least the 2 weeks of accruals. So you may say, look, we want you to use all of your employer-provided sick leave first. And if you still need time off from work after you've used up your sick leave, go to the authority. But we want you to use the sick leave first, which is lots of employers are doing that because they want to have a little bit more control and want to prevent employees stacking up the different leave entitlements consecutively. Generally speaking, short-term and long-term disability policies say right in the language of the policy that they are the payers of last resort. So you'll need to look and see what your policy says. But typically, they would say use a state-provided benefit before the employee can come to get the short-term disability. The statute also says that if you're receiving workers' comp benefits or unemployment insurance benefits, you cannot simultaneously receive money from the Paid Leave Authority. So that's just another way of making sure that people aren't double or triple dipping. So as I said, an employee has first gone to you and said, I can't come to work for these reasons, or I won't be able to come to work. And you're going to deal with the job protection. They're going to come to us and say, I need money because I'm not earning any money while I'm not working. We will validate if they're eligible for the benefits, looking at their total earnings, and make sure that the reason they're seeking the income replacement is a qualifying reason. We'll calculate the benefit amount, and then we'll work with the employee and the employer to make sure we have information about the actual covered absences and provide the offsets. And then we'll issue the benefit payment. The statute for defining the benefits is really wordy and complicated. Believe it or not, this is the simpler version of understanding the benefit. But basically, if the applicant earns less than or equal to 40 times the Connecticut minimum wage, their benefit payment will be 95% of their base weekly earnings. If they earn more than 40 times the Connecticut minimum wage, they'll get 95% up to that 40 times the Connecticut minimum wage, plus 60% of the difference. In all situations, the benefit is capped at 60 times the Connecticut minimum wage. So a couple of scenarios here just to make it a little bit clearer. And here I'm just assuming the minimum wage is $12 an hour. 40 times that is $4.80. 60 times that is $7.20. So if you have an individual like Lee who earns less than 40 times the Connecticut minimum wage, Lee's benefits will be 95% of his earnings. In this situation, 95% of $450 is $427.50. In scenario 2, we show an example of someone who earns more than 40 times the Connecticut minimum wage. So we see that you get the $480 plus 60% of the difference between the wages and the $480. So if you earn $800 a week, that is $480 plus $192, which would equal $672. In the third scenario, we see someone who earns a lot more. And just like the contributions are capped, the benefits are capped. So in this situation, when you do the calculation, you see that the calculation would equate to more than 60 times the Connecticut minimum wage. And so instead of giving Riley the results of the calculation, Riley would just get the 60 times the Connecticut minimum wage. Okay. Just want to quickly go through private plans. I know there are a lot of questions coming in, so I want to make sure we have a chance to get to those. But private plans are, I think, important because it's an option employers should consider. If an employer wants to offer a private plan, it has to provide exactly the same benefits and follow the same rules as the Connecticut public program. You would be the one administering the claims for paid leave benefits. You are not required to take contributions from your employee. So that's a big difference from the program, the public program. But you have the option to do so. If you do so, it can't be greater than the amount that we take. So now it will be 0.5%. And if you do so, the money has to be used exclusively for purposes of providing the benefits and running the program. You can't just take the money and fold it into your other general benefits. The way it works is set forth on our website under the I want to apply for a private plan tab. There is, if you scroll down to the bottom, you'll see sort of the steps of doing it, but there's also just a link to the policy itself, which provides all of the information about the process and the policy. It must offer the same or better benefits. So for all the same leave reasons, the same amount of money, the same length of time. So short-term disability policies are not going to cut it. Short-term disability policies don't provide the same benefits for the same reasons. So that's not going to work. But as of today, we have, I think 15 or 16 different insurance companies that have filed with the Department of Insurance to offer these plans. So they are out there in the market. The plan must cover all of your employees working in Connecticut. You can't offer a private plan just for your executive suite and then tell the rest of your employees that they have to participate in the public plan. So it's everybody. But it's just the ones working in Connecticut. So if you are multi-state or multinational, your plan doesn't have to include people from other states. Because the Connecticut paid leave program is entirely employee funded, it was important to the legislature that the employees decide if they want to stay with the Connecticut program or go with a private plan. And so the statute requires that the employees vote in favor of a private plan. And it must be approved by the majority of your employees working in Connecticut. So how would you do this? We're still working with the insurance community on getting finalized insurance policies, but we want to make sure that employers who want to offer private plans can do so before they have to start making the contributions, which have to start being pulled as of next week, but don't get remitted until the end of the fiscal quarter. So we've got a little bit of time. So we built this sort of 3-step process. Right now, go ahead and register, and there'll be a spot for you to indicate if you want to apply for a private plan. This just helps us know what kind of population we're looking at and helps us target information. We are in the process of building the application for the private plan exemption on our website. You're going to apply using a declaration of insurance that's been filed with the Department of Insurance, or on the basis of a self-insured plan, then you have to file a declaration of self-insurance. And then as the insurance community finalizes the plan documents, you would upload your final plan document in the future. We just want to make sure that those final policies, which require some additional technical information that the insurance companies have been looking for, but we wanted employers to be able to get approval for the private plans without having them wait for the insurance community to get all of their pieces finalized. So that's why we have this 3-step process. It's something that Massachusetts did and it worked well for them, so we decided to adopt it. Oops, trying to move forward here. So you can, as I said, work with an insurer who's filed a declaration, or you can develop a self-insured plan. We have a self-insurance declaration document as an attachment to that policy that's on our website. You have to educate your employers about the plan. So you have to give them a copy of the declaration, as well as something we're calling the plain language guide, a template of which is on our website, to make sure that they understand what you're offering to them. And then you have to hold a vote. It has to be anonymous. We recommend using any of those online apps are really a great way of doing the vote. And then you have to make sure a majority voted in favor of it. Under the statute, self-insured plans have to be supported by a surety bond, which would be equal to the estimated value of a year's worth of contributions, so that there is protection for your employees to make sure that the money will be there. All right. Said, ctpleave.org has a lot of great information, FAQs, videos, tabs specifically for employees, for employers, for sole proprietors. And I did not expect to do that. So it's a great source of information, and you can share like the website and the videos with your employees as well. Quick reminder of the time frame. You register, you make your deductions, and then you start remitting the payments. Technically, they're due at the end of the quarter, just like unemployment or payroll taxes. But just like unemployment and payroll taxes, we're giving everybody a grace period of 1 month. So even though it's due at the end of the quarter, you're not really late unless you don't get it in by the end of April. And then applications for income replacement benefits will start next fall, and benefits will actually be paid with leaves that start in January of 2022. If you haven't registered, it's really easy. You sign up with businessct.gov, which is really the business one-stop, and they'll give you credentials, and then you can go to our website, you enter in your contact information, you provide some basic information about your company, your name, FEIN, your address, the type of your business, and you're good to go. And then you receive your information for your own account, which then becomes sort of your portal and dashboard for everything you need to do in relation with our program. Okay, one last quick slide before we get to questions, which is notifying your employees about what's going on. Employees tend to notice what's happening with their paychecks, and they're going to want to know why their paychecks are a little bit less than they have been. So we've created all sorts of information, a poster, flyer, a mailer. There's also an employer toolkit that's got all of this information. It's all on our website on ctpleave.org. It's all available in color and black and white. It's currently available in English and in Spanish. We hope to get more languages in the future. And it's just helpful information so that you can explain to your employees why their deductions are being taken. If you have more questions after today that we don't get a chance to, go to ctpleave.org, go to the frequently asked questions, go to the videos, read the about us or employer tab. But if you still have questions, particularly if you have questions about registering, you can go to the contact us page. We have a team, we've contracted with United Way, and we have a team of of workers who are standing by to help respond to questions. So we'll get back to you as soon as we possibly can with questions or answers to your questions. You can also learn more about us and follow us and help us get the word out by going to our various social media on Facebook, on Instagram, and on Twitter. Okay. Sorry if I took a little longer. I keep adding because I get questions, so I try and answer them through the presentation. But now let's stop sharing and see what questions have been coming in during the presentation.
Awesome, excellent. So thank you very much, Erin. This was very, very informative. Let's take a look at some of the questions here. I'm going to also unmute the attendees so that everyone has a chance to chat. So let me do that really quick, and feel free to raise your hand if you'd like to talk or just type it into the chat box. But looks like we've got a few questions in there already. So Amber, do you want to sort of take the lead on the Q&A piece since you've done this before with Erin?
Sure, that would be great.
Perfect.
So we had a question here about LLCs, Erin, and as a single member of an LLC, is it considered the same as self-employed?
Yes. So if you are a single member LLC, you presumably are paying self-employment taxes, you are going to be self-employed. If you, on the other hand, have set it up so that you are an employee of your organization and you have your organization issue you a W-2, you have made the decision to treat yourself as an employee, we're going to take that designation and treat you as an employee as well. So it really depends on how you set yourself up and how you pay your taxes.
And would that work the same as entrepreneurs or solopreneurs?
Absolutely.
Okay. This one is regarding private plans. If an employer opts for a private plan and offers employees leave at full pay, can an employer use the contributions collected from employees to fund an employee's entire leave at full salary? Or is the contribution restricted to only cover the dollar amount equivalent to the benefit amount?
So they can use the money collected if they choose to take the 0.5% from their employees to support a private plan for the benefits associated with the private plan. If your private plan is more generous than ours, so 100%, you could use the money for that. What you can't do is take the money and then use it to apply to sort of a suite of benefit entitlements or just to sort of generally fund all of your benefits to employees. It has to be connected to the private plan and the paid leave reasons.
Great, thank you, Erin. The next question is, can you explain how this law applies to clergy? Does the congregation withhold for them, or do they take care of their own FICA payments? Would they do the same for this?
Yeah, clergy, it's complicated. And I've learned a lot about the way the tax situation for clergy members in the past few weeks. But basically it really comes back down to that basic question of, are you issuing a W-2 or not? For clergy, there's the question is, what income of a clergy person is subject to FICA? And if the income is subject to FICA, then they are considered to be an employee, and that income would be subject to the 0.5%. On the other hand, there are clergy people whose income is not subject to FICA at all. They're actually considered to be self-employed, either entirely or in connection with a portion of their work. So they might be a clergy person who is employed by a hospital as a chaplain, and so they get a paycheck and a W-2 from the hospital, and so they're an employee for that perspective. But for purposes of weekend liturgy and weddings and funerals, they're self-employed, and so they would have the opportunity to choose to self-enroll if they want to based on their self-employment income, but they'd have to be enrolled for purposes of the income that's subject to FICA.
Erin, as a sole proprietor, how is the 0.5% calculated and submitted, particularly if you have fluctuating income?
Yeah, it's so the 0.5% is based on your self-employment earnings as you calculate for your self-employment taxes. We we're setting it up with the expectation that you would want to make your quarterly estimated payments and then have the opportunity to reconcile at the end of the year. We know that not all self-employed people have an income which lends itself to making quarterly estimated payments. And so we're looking at other options. But right now, that's sort of our expectation, is that the person who self-enrolls will make quarterly estimated payments and reconcile at the end of the year.
Okay, great. And Erin, can you touch base a little bit about how the residency works based on the law, particularly in regards for people who live in Connecticut and work outside the state, or people that live outside the state and work in Connecticut?
Great. So the answer depends on your status. If you are self-employed or sole proprietor, sort of in that broader definition that we've just been talking about, you have to live in Connecticut to apply for our program. So that's the only group of people who have a true residency requirement. For employees, we don't care where you live, we care where you work. So if you live in Rhode Island or Massachusetts or New York, but come to Connecticut to work, then you're a Connecticut employee. If you live in Connecticut, but go to Rhode Island or Massachusetts or New York, you'll actually be an employee for purposes of those programs in those states. People working from home due to COVID add a little bit of complications to this sort of simple analysis, because a lot of us are working from home, but we're still considered to be employed at our regular work site. And so what we're doing is following the lead of the DOL and Revenue Services and basically saying, look, if your employer categorizes you as working in Connecticut, even though for COVID purposes, you're working at home in your house in Rhode Island, we're going to continue to consider you a Connecticut employee as well. Your employer is paying unemployment to Connecticut, they're paying Connecticut payroll taxes, you're a Connecticut employee, even though right now you're doing it remotely. If, on the other hand, your employer says, wow, we love everyone working remotely and we're going to permanently make that change, well, then we'll deal with your sort of new permanent home location and your employer will have to register you for the programs in those other states.
Thank you, Erin. So we have a few more questions on sole proprietors, S Corps and C Corps. So I'll just kind of run through those with you real quick, because I know we have a lot of people that have questions like this. So the first one is, if a sole proprietor, their only employee is their spouse, is their spouse employee covered Connecticut employment?
Yeah, again, it's going to go to how are you paying your spouse, and is your spouse getting a W-2? So if you are paying payroll taxes on your spouse and you categorize your spouse as an employee, then you have to register as an employer to make sure that your spouse employee will remit the 0.5% contribution. If you are in a situation where you're not paying a W-2 on that family member, then you're really not required to sign up as an employer.
So this one is very similar in the sense that the spouse is self-employed and pays payroll taxes through their S Corp. Can that person opt from the paid leave withholding?
Opt in or opt out? I lost you in the flow. Now, if they're truly self-employed and they're not receiving a W-2 and they're not categorized as an employee for purposes of payroll taxes, then they qualify for the opt-in. They don't have to, but they can if they want to. If they're set up as an employee and they're receiving a W-2, they're paying payroll taxes to the state as an employee, then they must remit the contribution. There's no individual opt-out for employees.
Okay, great. And the next one is, oh, where did it go? Hold on, Erin, give me just a second, I lost it. Okay,
No
would the
problem.
owner of a C Corp who takes a weekly paycheck like all the other employees be required to contribute and eligible to participate?
And it really goes to do they set up the C Corp so that the owner is also set up as an employee and is receiving wages with a W-2? If so, then they're an employee and have to participate. If they are taking their draw or their partnership share, or, you know, any of the other sort of myriad ways that an owner can ensure that they get some income out of the business, but they're not getting a W-2, then we won't consider them to be an employee.
Okay. And our last question here, this one's coming from Rebecca. If an employee works in multiple states, will only Connecticut wages be taxed with the 0.5 of 1%?
It's a great question. It really comes back down to the question of where they're sort of designated as their home base. So for unemployment purposes, for unemployment insurance purposes, they have to pick a state. And so we're going to say pick the same. If you picked Connecticut as the state where you pay unemployment, then that's the state where the employee is working. It really goes to kind of where you work primarily. So if you primarily work in Connecticut, but you have to go into New York a couple times a month, you're a Connecticut employee.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Erin. That's all the questions we have for today. Does anybody else have any other questions they'd like to drop in the chat or in the Q&A? Anyone at all? Last call. All right. Looks like that's
I
all
have
we
one.
have.
Oh, here comes
great.
one.
I have one.
Okay.
When will the recording be available for my rest of my HR to watch?
We're going to defer to South Windsor and Chamber for that.
So I'm going to defer that to Amy. So Amy, do you want to answer that one?
Yeah, that will be that'll be on our website after this. I'll add it to the event page. So if you go to the events, and you might have to hit load older events, it'll be on there.
Thank you, Amy.
No problem.
Awesome, great. So so before we close out, Mike, did you want to say anything? I know you joined us a little later from the chamber.
Yeah, hello everybody. Sorry I joined late. I had a 2 p.m. appointment with a heating customer. I apologize. But I just want to thank the group for joining us today. I know this was a put together last minute, and I know you had to jump through a lot of hoops to make yourselves available for us, but I think it's going to provide a great value to our local business community. And I just wanted to say thank you, and I truly appreciate it. So
Awesome, great. Thanks, Mike. And Erin, Amber, the team, thank you so much. Very educational, very informative. It's great. I personally actually had a lot of questions about this too, so a lot of them got answered. So, and thank you to all of our attendees. So wishing everyone a very, very safe, happy new year. Please celebrate safely. And hopefully, as I mentioned, 2021 should not be as exciting as 2020 in good ways only. All right, take care, everyone. Happy New Year.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us. Happy New Year.
Thank you.